If you're pouring your heart into your podcast, but still struggling to turn those listeners into paying clients, I've got something just for you. Imagine having a clear, simple plan to turn your listeners into buyers without relying on a huge audience or spending hours on social media. That's exactly what we'll create together in a podcast profit plan discovery call. During this free 20-minute call, I'll help you discover more opportunities for profit in your podcast and give you the next best step to turn your show into a client attracting machine. If I've got an offer that will help you expedite this process, then we can also discuss working together. Book your free podcast profit plan discovery call now by going to podcastingformoms.co/profit plan or by clicking the link in the show notes. I can't wait to chat with you. Ever feel like you're walking a tightrope between serving your audience and selling to them? Like the moment you mention your offer, you suddenly sound like a late night infomercial? You're not alone. But here's the truth. Your podcast can convert listeners into buyers without making you feel gross or pushy. In today's episode, I'm sharing how to craft content that builds trust, sparks action, and fits seamlessly into your episodes, all while still sounding like you. Let's get into it. Welcome to Podcasting for Moms, the show for moms in business ready to start, grow, and scale a podcast that turns their listeners into buyers. I'm Jenny Soneson, a podcast strategist and fellow mom entrepreneur. You're in the right place if you want to learn how to start and grow a podcast that attracts your ideal clients and really does the heavy lifting for you when it comes to selling your offers, all while balancing life as a busy mom. Are you ready to create a podcast that grows your income, impact, and influence? Let's make podcasting work for you because as moms, we know how to get things done. All right, let's jump into the episode. Hey there, welcome back to Podcasting for Moms, the show that helps you start, grow, and monetize your podcast in a way that actually works with your real life, diaper changes, school drop-offs, and all. If you've ever hit record thinking, okay, I need to promote my offer today, and then you instantly felt awkward, robotic, or like you were reading a script you hated, this episode's for you. We're diving into how to create podcast content that actually converts, gets your listeners to take action, buy, apply, or opt in without sounding like a walking commercial. Let's be real. You didn't start a podcast to become a sales machine, but you also didn't start it just for fun. You want it to work for your business without compromising your voice or vibe. So let's break down how to make this happen. So first, let's start with a mindset shift. Selling is serving. I'm sure you've heard this one before, but when you have an offer that can truly help your listener, whether it's your service, your digital product, or your freebie, you're doing them a favor by sharing it. What makes podcast selling feel icky is when we go into full infomercial mode. But when it's woven into the natural flow of your episode, it's just part of the conversation. Your podcast is a relationship building tool, and part of building a relationship is showing people how you can help them beyond just sharing free content. So here is how I like to break down podcast content that converts without sounding like a sales pitch. So first up, we have story-driven content. So people remember stories, not bullet points. Share a personal story that ties into the offer that you're promoting. Let them see a real behind the scenes, why you created this offer, who it's helped, and what happened when you didn't have it in place. Then naturally invite them to take the next step. So here's an example of that. I used to spend hours editing my own show until I finally built a workflow that saved me 5+ hours a week. That's actually what inspired the workflow template inside of my podcast toolkit. Boom. No pitch, just a story and invitation. Number 2, the second type of content is teaching with a purpose. So you want to create episodes that solve a small problem or give a quick win that leads logically to your offer. So first you want to start with a pain point, then offer a helpful insight or method, and then point to the bigger solution, which is your offer if they want to go deeper. So here's an example of that. Today we're diving into podcast SEO, but if you want me to help you optimize your show notes and titles so that they actually rank, make sure to check out my podcast audit offer linked in the show notes. Helpful first, offer second. Then we have the third type, which is behind the scenes content. So this is where you take your listeners behind the scenes of your process, your client wins, your day-to-day systems, whatever relates to the result your offer creates. This feels natural, personal, and builds major trust. So here's an example of some behind the scenes content. I just wrapped up a podcast launch for a mom who was juggling a 9 to 5 and 2 littles. We used my 3-episode Launchpad framework to make it doable, and I wanted to share how it went. Then you go into the story. So tell the story, give the win, and then offer a way for them to get that result too. So now let's talk about how you're inviting listeners to take this action with you. Here's what works. So number 1 is soft calls to action. Something like, if this episode hit home, I think that you'd love my freebie/product linked in the show notes. That's a very soft call to action. Then we have a conversational call to action. Want me to walk you through this? That's exactly what we do inside your offer name. And then finally, we have contextual CTAs. And that is something like this. This is something that I go deeper on in insert your offer here. So if you want my templates or help mapping this out, make sure to check that out. I want you to avoid robotic call to action scripts like go to www.whatever and instead integrate them like a friend giving a recommendation. And you don't need to plug your offer in every single episode, but if it fits the content naturally, then go for it. So let's wrap up with this. Selling through your podcast doesn't mean turning your episodes into commercials. It means creating valuable, trust-building content that points your listener towards the next best step with you. So next time you sit down to record, ask yourself these questions. What's the action that I want them to take? What would help them feel ready to take it? And lastly, how can I share that from a place of service? You're not just podcasting, you're leading, guiding, and supporting. And that's the opposite of salesy. And if today's episode made you feel a little bit more confident about promoting your offers, I'd love for you to DM me over on Instagram at jenny.sunnison and tell me what you're going to try next. And if you want help crafting content that actually grows your podcast and your business, make sure to check out the Moms Behind the Mic Society. We've got a full content strategy, library, and community to help you map it out without overthinking every single episode. You've got this, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning into Podcasting for Moms. I hope today's episode gave you the tools and inspiration you need to make your podcast work smarter, not harder. If you love what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It means the world and helps other moms in business find the show. For more tips, resources, and support, head to podcastingformoms.co. Remember, you're not just building a podcast, you're building your legacy. Until next time, friends.